Welcome to our Savvy series. I'm Catherine Magaña here with Rachel Ivanovich. And today we're going to have a discussion that we hear about a lot. And it's really about how much can you safely spend in retirement. So here we are, you've saved for retirement, you've invested, you're preparing for retirement. And piece into place is, am I saving enough, and can I actually spend, and do I have enough money that will last? And so there's this fear potentially, am I going to run out of money? And so today we're going to have this discussion about retirement and your money, and really getting you to make sure that you're not worried about depleting your money. And obviously having a plan is extremely important. And so today we're going to discuss why there's no magic withdrawal percentage, and actually what determines how much you spend and how much money is left through your retirement plan and investments.
So it's really funny. I just went to coffee with someone this morning.
And they asked you this?
They asked me this exact question. It's like,
so
have you heard about the 4% rule?
Yeah.
And what do you think about that? And so that's one of the things that retirees really search for online is what's a safe withdrawal rate? And maybe you've even heard about the 4%, the magic 4% rule. And for years, this has been used as a simple guideline for retirement withdrawals. And while it can be a starting point, it's often misunderstood because, and this is exactly what I told him, was nobody's retirement looks the same.
Yeah.
And everybody's lifestyle looks different as well. Some people retire early, let's say 55. Some people retire at 70. Some people just keep working and have a, side gig. They don't want to retire.
Yeah.
Some people have pensions. It really depends on your other income that you have. Maybe you have rental properties that generate incomes. Some people just rely on their investment accounts. And it also depends on your budget because everybody spends differently. Mm-hmm. And people want to do different things in retirement as well. For instance, some people want to travel a lot and some people just don't. And some people have family members to support or kids that are still in college. So there's different budgets, and so every single person is different. So that single percentage or that magic number, it can't apply for every situation. But most people really want certainty. And retirement planning isn't about finding specific numbers. It's about creating a strategy that fits for your unique situation, and that's why you need to have a plan.
Exactly. Okay, so what actually determines safe spending? So when you think about retirement, it really starts with your lifestyle. So how much income do you have coming in? Then you have to think about taxes. How much are you spending? And so while your income can play a big part of this, you really also have to think about, do I have Social Security? Do I have pensions? Do I have rental income? When did you claim Social Security? Obviously, depending on, and that varies for each individual investor and client based on their life expectancies, their cash needs, are they still working? And so there's some things that we consider. And the market conditions matter, life expectancy matters, healthcare expenses matter. And so,
especially if you retire before Medicare age.
Yeah. And so it's like you have to factor all these things. And then how are you going to cover your medical expenses? And so in the past, we have done, we talked about this in the past as well, but one of the things to look at your lifestyle expenses is really taking a step back and looking at what are your living, what are your lifestyle, and what are your luxury expenses. And when you start putting that mindset in place of really taking a look at how am I spending my money and kind of breaking that down, we're not saying you can't go enjoy certain things, but having a plan and really specifying in your plan, okay, these are my core living expenses. Here's my travel budget. Here are some of the things that are maybe it's like a one-time big trip. And so while it's important to also look at when you're in retirement, your spending patterns might change a little bit. And like you mentioned, there's different phases. So do you want to travel more? Do you want to see family? And so we definitely think that it's important to look at your spending. It's actually important to look at any age and any time. And it's interesting as we do this exercise with our clients, a lot of times things come up that I didn't realize, one, I haven't done this, but two, I didn't realize I was spending so much money on groceries or dining out or some extra expenses. And so while, once again, we want you to live a life that you enjoy, it doesn't hurt to take a step back and really look at how am I really spending my money. And so the other things that we factor in are, do you expect an inheritance down the line? Do you plan to help your children, your grandchildren? And so looking and putting all these pieces together, it really helps us figure out, okay, what type of retirement income do you need, and really plan and design strategies for our clients. So it's not just, hey, here's a certain percentage. It's really, okay, what do you actually need, and how are we going to get your investments to work a certain way to make sure we get the income for you?
And that's a really good topic. I actually had that conversation with a client this morning after my coffee. So we put together her investment proposal for her, and I guess she ran it by a friend, and they said, oh, wow, that income percentage that they're going to be getting is really low. Well, income planning is not necessarily the same as investment performance.
Correct.
And so when I explained to her, some strategies are in place to generate income for you, and some are to have your portfolio grow. So really one of the biggest misconceptions out there and retirees have is believing that their investment performance and retirement income are the same thing.
Okay.
And so really looking at those differently, because they're not. Because and your portfolio may perform really well over 20 or 30 years, but the order of those returns also really makes a difference. And one of the things we talked about was making sure that we had enough money in buckets that were fixed income, because sequence of returns can really hurt your portfolio. And so if the market all of a sudden decides to take a dive the first year or 5 years when you retire, that could really hurt your big picture.
Correct.
And so we want to make sure that we are planning for your unique situation, and we're not necessarily just chasing returns, but that we have a strategy that's going to fit for your entire life.
So another challenge retirees often underestimate is inflation. So inflation is a real thing, and
We haven't felt that all this year.
right? And so your spending today will be a lot different 10 years from now based on inflation. But we do factor in inflation when we look at our projections and numbers, and we think that's definitely important to consider. There's healthcare costs that are going up, insurance premiums, gas, food.
Groceries, yeah.
It seems like everything is going up in cost, and so while you do have a plan in place, you do have to factor in some of these expenses and lifestyle. And we do factor in inflation, but that's why it's important to go back occasionally to your lifestyle and your expenses to see, okay, is there a bigger change than we expected, or is it still in line, not just based on inflation, but is anything out of the ordinary? So while planning is, it's good to do projections, it's also good to kind of take a step back and revisit. And I think we did that with some clients this last year where they just retired, and then all of a sudden they're like, well, let's see what we're really spending now, and how does this work? And also, they had some travel, some travel plans too. So while we, do want to make sure inflation is considered, it doesn't hurt to always go back and also revisit your expenses too.
And one of the biggest mistakes that retirees make is assuming that the retirement plan is a one and done.
Yeah, and it's not.
It's not. You really need to be going back. And to your point, the client that we were meeting with, she had just retired. He'd been in retirement for a while, and they had a different strategy for their portfolio, and their expenses had changed, and they came into the office and they, really wanted to revisit that with me as, we have different expenses, and then they had some projects they wanted to do on the house. But then we also, what was interesting to look at was, as they're getting older, they didn't want as much growth. Yeah. They wanted to maybe restructure the portfolio, and maybe now we want a little bit more income generated. So things change. Your health changes, tax laws change, your spending changes, and you really need to be reviewing your strategy and your portfolio, maybe not even annually, maybe twice a year if things change. If you have something big come up in your life, you definitely want to make a visit and make an appointment.
Well, it's interesting you say that. I've had multiple conversations these last few weeks with some clients that have inherited money. And while in the plan, we didn't know exactly how much they were going to get. And so now these inheritance and some didn't even know they were going to get an inheritance. So, but it actually changed kind of their risk temperament and kind of their planning. And so once again,
absolutely,
that's why it's important. It's not just, hey, it's one and done. When things change in your life, that may change overall kind of some of the things that we're looking at for the plan and the investments. And so the retirees that feel most confident aren't the ones that have the biggest portfolios potentially, although they have enough assets to live on. Actually, the ones that have the biggest portfolios, I realize, have the hardest time spending the money, believe it or not.
That is true.
But the ones that have the clearest plans and understand where the income can come from, really, and know that we have a plan in place, tend to not worry when the markets are fluctuating and going up and down because they know I have a plan in place. And so usually we look at, they understand they have their Social Security and their investment income, and how everything kind of works together. So we do revisit the plans, and we do sometimes have to point out, okay, this is what we're doing and why. But if you have a financial and retirement plan in place and an income strategy, then you should be able to live your life and everything's working. Now, once again, it doesn't mean not to revisit occasionally, but retirement isn't about making tons of changes all the time. It's about living the life that you want,
Exactly.
And making sure that you're making well-informed decisions. So I guess that the one takeaway for today is it's not about just one magic percentage you want to take out. It's really about building a flexible income strategy and figuring out what you need. Markets will change, go up and down. Inflation will change. Goals will change. Things will change. And so we're here to help navigate that with you and have conversations with you. If you would like a complimentary strategy session, you can reach us at 760-692-5700. And we want to thank you today for getting savvy with us about your finances. And remember to savvy up.
Please stay tuned for important disclosures. The opinions expressed in this program are for general informational purposes only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual or any specific security. It is only intended to provide education about the financial industry. To determine which investments may be appropriate for you, consult your financial advisor prior to investing. Any past performance discussed during this program is no guarantee of future results, and the indices referenced for comparison are unmanaged and cannot be invested into directly. As always, please remember investing involves risk and possible loss of principal capital. Please seek advice from a licensed professional. Savvy Woman Wealth Management is a registered investment advisor with the SEC.